Welcome everyone to the first module of our course, Introduction to Transportation Planning. Module 1 is titled The Framework. This material has been carefully created and curated by myself, Professor Venagala, and the accompanying audio has been rendered using an AI-generated voice. Please remember that this video and all materials are subject to copyright laws. The focus of this module is on demographics. It is divided into 4 parts: A through D, population demographics and travel characteristics, the transportation planning process, a systems approach to planning, and an overview of travel demand modeling. We begin with Part 1A, Population Demographics, where we will analyze the trends that shape travel demand. First, let's consider why transportation planning is important. It is critical for understanding the impact of transportation on our society and economy. Understanding historical context is key to predicting the future. Major post-war shifts fundamentally redefined modern America. This is a picture from a household survey from several decades ago. Surveys reveal preferences, identify trends, and help build models, both predictive and forecasting models. The United States has experienced a major population shift, moving from the industrial north and east towards the Sun Belt. To illustrate this, consider the top 5 most populated states. In 1940, New York was number 1, but by 2020 it had dropped to 4th place. Conversely, California, which was 5th in 1940, is now the most populated state. Looking at the changes over 70 years, the top 5 in 1940 were New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Ohio, and California. By 2010, the list had changed to California, Texas, New York, Florida, and Illinois. The 2020 census further solidifies this trend, with Florida now at number 3 and New York at number 4. This great migration south occurred between the 1950s and 1980s, driven by industrial decline in the Midwest. This population shift from the Rust Belt to the Sun Belt saw massive growth absorbed by states like California, Texas, Florida, and Arizona. The rapid expansion of population into the South and West significantly impacted the region, requiring transportation infrastructure to play catch-up to the sudden and widespread growth. Tracking modern moving patterns shows contemporary shifts. States like Idaho and Florida see high inbound migration, while states like Illinois and California experience high outbound migration. In the last 80 years, educational attainment has dramatically increased, from 4.6% of the population having a bachelor's degree in 1940 to 37.9% in 2020. Higher education correlates with different travel patterns and job locations. Median incomes rose substantially, and the gender wage gap is narrowing, influencing household economic power and vehicle ownership. By 2022, women earned 82 cents for every dollar earned by men. This slide covers societal changes, specifically the trend of delayed marriage. The median age for a first marriage has increased significantly, directly affecting household formation and housing choices. To put this in perspective, in 1940, about 68% of females aged 20 to 34 were married, but by 2020, that figure has dropped to around 39% in the same age bracket. Why is this a key topic in transportation planning? Because it has a direct impact on travel demand. For instance, what would be a single grocery trip for a married couple living together could potentially become 2 separate trips for the same 2 people if they were single and living in 2 separate households. This change in household structure increases the total number of trips being made. To understand the demographic trends, we use the census regions. The U.S. is divided into 4 regions: Northeast, Midwest, South, and West. The general demographic shift has been a move from the Northeast and Midwest to the South and West. Population density is a key determinant of travel demand. In the 1920s, population was concentrated in dense urban cores around rail and manufacturing hubs. Personal automobile ownership was just starting to scale. Note that the green dots in the map insert indicate counties with high population densities. During the 1930s, industrial stability kept populations tethered to major employment centers. Despite the Great Depression, growth slowed, but density remained high in established cities. On the map, you can observe more green dots in the 30s, indicating an increase in urbanization. The green dots on the map spread west during the 1940s and 1950s, indicating that the western United States was becoming more urbanized. This era is primarily defined by the suburban boom following World War II. Critically, the development of the interstate highway system played a major role, facilitating a massive spread of low-density housing and development away from the central city centers. Between 2000 and 2020, growth has shifted to new urban centers like Phoenix and Austin, creating a challenge in managing congestion in auto-centric infrastructure. These are the cities with highest growth in 2 decades. Remember, this data is from decennial census, which means that you will have comparisons over a 10-year period. Since 1790, the U.S. population has steadily migrated away from the Northeast. In the 1900s, thanks to the Industrial Revolution, the Midwest boomed. By 2020, the South was the dominant region, holding 38% of the census share. Key regional facts show the mean center of population has moved steadily west and south. The West has been the fastest-growing region, while the Northeast maintains the highest density. In the early 1800s, the mean center of population was Howard County, Maryland. Per 2020 census, the mean center is now at Wright County, Missouri. Overall population has more than tripled since 1900. By 2020, approximately 86% of the U.S. population lived in metropolitan areas, illustrating the continuous urban shift. The map insert shows you the trend in rise of urban areas with more than 100,000 population. The U.S. population structure is aging, moving from a classic pyramid shape in 1900 to a pillar shape in 2020 due to lower birth rates and longer lifespans. The I-95 corridor represents the Northeast megalopolis, the highest concentration of population density. This concentration requires high demand for multimodal transit planning. Early America was rural, but the Industrial Revolution drove the shift to cities. A key moment was 1920, the first census where 50% of the population was urban. Today we see mega regions forming as urban centers merge. Here's a key planning concept. Metropolitan planning organizations, or MPOs, are required in urban areas of 50,000 or more. Critically, the vast majority of Americans now live in these metropolitan areas, making MPOs central to national planning. The nuclear family is no longer the sole model. Average household size has shrunk from 3.3 people in 1960 to 2.5 today. Fewer people per home means more housing units and more infrastructure are needed to support the same population, driving up total trip generation. This is the most dramatic demographic shift, the single-person household. It has jumped from 13% in 1960 to almost 30% today. This is a game-changer for transport, as every solo resident is a distinct household that generates new trips. We've fundamentally increased the number of, quote, trip-making units. The data is clear. Solo households have increased dramatically. This forces us to ask the central planning question. What is the fundamental impact of this increase on our future transportation network? We are solving for a doubled number of potential, quote, trip-making units for the same population size. Let's shift to work trips, the traditional focus of planning. The economy itself, the types of jobs people hold, is the primary driver, shaping where and when people travel. This is where we see major modern changes. The economy has completely transformed. In 1940, people traveled to manufacturing and agriculture sites. Today, it's education, health, and professional services. This move from fixed factory sites to diffuse, knowledge-based centers radically changes how and where people commute. The influx of women into the professional workforce since the 1970s is one of the most profound structural changes in travel demand. With a participation rate around 57%, we see new complexity, trip chaining. Commutes now often include stops like dropping off children, increasing the number and complexity of non-work trips during peak hours. This is the seismic shift. Work from home. Post-COVID-19, hybrid work structurally reduces peak commuting demand. This affects more than just traffic. It changes shopping habits and creates a fiscal crisis for transit agencies that relied on the 9-to-5 commuter. We must plan for this new, decentralized demand. Globalization demands efficient freight and airport access. The service shift clusters jobs but also allows remote work, reinforcing growth in major metro areas where talent concentrates. Commuter flow causes a massive daytime population surge in employment hubs. This severely stresses our infrastructure during peak work hours. Hybrid work is a structural change, dampening the quote, daytime population surge. Central business districts now see 50 to 70% of pre-pandemic traffic. This means reduced peak demand, an economic hit to service jobs, and a financial crisis for commuter transit. This is the biggest travel behavior shift in half a century. Work from home jumped from 4.3% in 2010 to over 15% in 2022, fundamentally changing demand patterns. Who works from home? Mostly highly educated, high-income individuals in white-collar fields like management, science, and arts. They are 3 times more likely to work remotely than the lowest-income earners. Remote work isn't universal. Top sectors like information/tech see 50% plus remote work, followed by professional services and finance. This shows a clear divide in the WFH economy. The West and Northeast lead the WFH trend. This is driven by their high cost of living and deep concentration of tech and finance jobs. The great VMT mystery: commuting is down, but total vehicle miles traveled is nearly back to pre-pandemic levels. The difference: massive increases in freight, delivery, and personal business travel are filling the gap. Historically, we obsessed over the AM/PM commute. But today, work trips are less than 20% of total travel. Non-work trips, shopping, errands, social, are the real drivers of daily demand. On average, Americans travel 30 to 40 miles daily across all modes. This distance has remained remarkably stable in recent history. The average American spends about an hour a day in a vehicle. Commute times are currently rising again after a slight dip. Interestingly, drivers spend twice as much time in a vehicle as passengers. Even with the growth of ride-sharing like Uber and Lyft, the private vehicle remains the standard for the American household. This ownership rate is critical for all future infrastructure planning. This is the density factor. There's a strong inverse relationship with vehicle ownership. Highly dense urban areas, like Manhattan, have very low ownership. In rural areas, having zero vehicles is extremely rare. Here's the paradox: as cities get bigger, average travel speeds actually decrease. This is due to congestion, even when major highway systems are present. Thanks to flexible schedules, we are seeing, quote, peak spreading. This is flattening the traditional sharp AM and PM spikes into broader, less intense peaks. People are commuting at varied times or running errands midday. That concludes Part 1A on population demographics and travel characteristics. Next, we will cover the transportation planning process.